She stood in my doorway with a look that stopped my heart, and in her hand was something that would change our lives forever. It was just another Thursday evening, the kind where you think nothing special is going to happen. He was sitting at his desk, eyes glued to his laptop screen, fingers typing away at some work project that needed to be finished by morning. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet, actually. Outside, he could hear the distant sound of cars passing by and maybe a dog barking somewhere down the street. His girlfriend had been home for about 2 hours now, but something felt off. Usually, when she came home from work, she'd talk about her day. She'd complain about her annoying coworker or share some funny story that happened at lunch. But tonight, nothing. She'd barely said hello. Just walked in, went to the kitchen, and then disappeared into the living room. He noticed it, of course. How could he not? But he didn't push. Sometimes people just need space, right? Maybe she had a rough day. Maybe she was tired. He figured she'd talk when she was ready, so he went back to his work, convincing himself that everything was fine. But then he heard footsteps. Soft footsteps coming down the hallway toward his room. He didn't look up at first, still focused on the screen in front of him. The footsteps stopped. He could feel someone standing in his doorway. That's when he looked up, and there she was, standing in the doorway with this look on her face. It wasn't a normal look. It was the kind of look that makes your stomach drop before your brain even understands why. Her face was pale, but her cheeks had this slight flush to them. Her eyes were wide, like she'd seen something shocking but also determined, like she'd made up her mind about something important. Her hands were fidgeting with the bottom of her sweater, twisting the fabric between her fingers. She didn't say anything at first, just stood there looking at him with those eyes that seemed to be asking for something. Understanding, maybe? Courage, he couldn't tell, but whatever it was, it made his heart start beating faster. He straightened up in his chair, suddenly very aware that whatever was about to happen was going to be big, the kind of big that changes things. His mind immediately went into overdrive, racing through every possible scenario. Was she breaking up with him? That look could be a breakup look. Oh God, was she sick? Did something happen to someone in her family? Did she lose her job? They couldn't afford for her to lose her job right now. Hey, he said softly, trying to keep his voice calm even though his insides were doing backflips. What's going on? She took a deep breath. The kind of breath you take when you're about to jump into cold water. Then she walked into the room, moving slowly, like her legs weren't quite sure they wanted to carry her forward. She didn't come to him, though. Instead, she walked over to his bed and sat down on the edge of it. The mattress dipped under her weight and she placed her hands flat on her knees, staring down at them like they held all the answers. He closed his laptop. Whatever he was working on suddenly didn't matter at all. He turned his chair to face her fully, giving her his complete attention. The room felt smaller somehow. The air felt thicker. He could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. "We need to talk," she said finally, and those 4 words hit him like a punch to the chest. Nobody ever says, "We need to talk," when they're about to share good news. Those words are reserved for the heavy stuff, the life-changing stuff. He felt his mouth go dry. His hands gripped the armrest of his chair. "Okay," he managed to say, though his voice came out rougher than he intended. "I'm listening." She looked up at him then, and he saw it all in her eyes. Fear, anxiety, hope, sadness, love. It was all mixed together in a way that made his chest ache. She opened her mouth like she was going to speak, then closed it again. Whatever she needed to say, it wasn't coming out easily. He wanted to go to her, to hold her hand and tell her that whatever it was, they'd figure it out together. But something kept him in his chair. Some instinct that told him he needed to let her do this her way, in her time. She took another deep breath and then she reached into the pocket of her jeans. His eyes followed her hand as she pulled something out. Something small. She held it in her closed fist for a moment like she was second-guessing herself. Then slowly she opened her hand and set the object down on the bed between them. For a second he couldn't process what he was seeing. His brain refused to connect the dots. It was just a small plastic stick, white and blue, but then his eyes focused on it properly, and he saw the little window on the stick. The window with 2 lines in it, 2 pink lines. His heart stopped. Actually stopped. Time seemed to freeze in that moment. The room, the apartment, the whole world just disappeared, and all that existed was him, her, and that little plastic stick with 2 pink lines, a pregnancy test, a positive pregnancy test. His eyes shot up to meet hers, and he saw that she was watching him carefully, trying to read his reaction. Her hands were shaking now, actually shaking. There were tears balanced on her lower eyelids, threatening to spill over at any second. "I'm pregnant," she whispered, and even though he'd already figured it out, hearing her say the words out loud made it real in a way that hit him like a truck. He couldn't move, couldn't speak. His mind was completely blank and overwhelmingly full at the same time. Pregnant. She was pregnant. They were going to have a baby. A baby. An actual human baby. His mouth opened, but no words came out. "What do you even say in a moment like this? Congratulations? Are you sure? What are we going to do?" None of those seemed right. She was still watching him, and he could see the fear growing in her eyes with every second that passed without him saying something. Anything. He forced himself to move. His legs felt like jelly as he stood up from his chair. He walked over to the bed, and his hand reached out almost on its own, picking up the pregnancy test. It felt impossibly light for something that carried so much weight. He stared at those two pink lines, and suddenly everything in his life felt different. Everything he thought he knew about his future had just shifted. All his plans, his goals, his timeline, none of it mattered anymore. Because right here, right now, holding this little plastic stick, he realized that his whole world had just changed forever. And as he looked from the test to her face, seeing the woman he loved sitting there terrified and vulnerable and brave all at once, he knew that nothing would ever be the same again. He stood there holding the pregnancy test, and his hands started trembling. Not just a little shake, but a full-on tremble that he couldn't control. The plastic felt warm from being in her pocket, and somehow that small detail made everything feel more real. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't a mistake. Those two pink lines weren't going to disappear if he blinked hard enough. He looked at her again, really looked at her, and saw that she was crying now. Silent tears running down her cheeks. She wasn't making any sound, just sitting there with her hands clutched together in her lap, watching him and waiting for him to say something. Anything. "How long have you known?" he finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. 3 days, she admitted, and her voice cracked on the words. "I've known for 3 days, and I didn't know how to tell you. I kept trying to find the right moment, the right words, but there's no right way to say this, is there? 3 days. She'd been carrying this secret, this enormous life-changing secret, for 3 whole days. He tried to imagine what that must have been like for her. Going to work, pretending everything was normal, coming home and acting like nothing had changed, all while knowing that their entire future had just been turned upside down. He set the test down on his desk and sat down heavily in his chair. His legs felt weak, like they might give out if he kept standing. His mind was racing so fast he couldn't hold on to a single thought. Questions kept popping up and disappearing before he could fully form them. "Are you sure?" he asked, even though he knew it was a stupid question. She wouldn't be sitting here crying if she wasn't sure. She nodded. "I took 4 tests. All positive. I even went to one of those walk-in clinics yesterday during my lunch break. They confirmed it. 4 tests. A clinic visit. This was really happening. They were really going to have a baby." "I'm scared," she said suddenly, and the raw honesty in her voice broke something inside him. "I'm really, really scared. We talked about having kids someday, you know, in the future when we were ready. But this is now. This is real. And I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if we're ready." He got up and moved to sit beside her on the bed. He wanted to take her hand, but he wasn't sure if he should. Everything felt fragile, like one wrong move would shatter whatever was holding them together in this moment. "We've only been together for 2 years, she continued, the words spilling out now like she'd been holding them back for too long. "We're still figuring out our careers. You're working those crazy hours trying to get that promotion, and I just started getting good projects at work. We live in this tiny apartment. We can barely afford our bills as it is. How are we supposed to afford a baby?" She was voicing all the logical concerns, all the practical reasons why this was terrible timing, and she was right. About all of it. They weren't in a position to have a child. Not financially, not career-wise, not by any measure of being ready. "And I don't even know if I want this," she whispered. And he could hear the guilt in her voice. "Does that make me a terrible person? I always thought I'd be happy if I got pregnant. But right now I just feel trapped. Like my whole life just got decided for me without my permission." He finally took her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. Her hand was cold and clammy. "You're not a terrible person," he said firmly. "You're scared. We're both scared, and that's okay." They sat there in silence for a while. The clock on his desk ticked away the seconds. Outside, he could hear someone's TV through the thin apartment walls. Normal life was continuing all around them while their whole world had stopped spinning. "I keep thinking about my body," she said quietly. "How it's going to change. How I'm going to change. What if I lose myself in all of this? What if I become just a mom and nothing else? I've worked so hard to build my career, to be independent, to be someone. And now..." Her voice trailed off, but he understood what she wasn't saying. She was afraid of disappearing into motherhood, of losing the person she'd worked so hard to become. "What about you?" she asked, turning to look at him. Her eyes were red and puffy from crying. "What are you thinking? You haven't said much. What was he thinking?" That was a good question. His mind was such a mess of emotions and thoughts that he didn't even know where to start. "Honestly," he said, "I'm terrified. Like absolutely terrified. I keep thinking about my own childhood, you know? My dad left when I was 5. Just packed up and walked out. And my mom, she tried her best, but she was always so stressed, always struggling to make ends meet. I saw how hard it was for her to raise me alone." He paused, swallowing hard. "I'm scared I'm going to mess this up. I'm scared I won't be a good father. I'm scared I'll turn out like my dad, or that I'll fail like my mom did. And the money thing? You're right. We can barely afford our rent. How are we supposed to afford diapers and formula and doctor visits and all the million things a baby needs?" Saying it all out loud made it feel even more overwhelming. They were two young people who were barely keeping their own lives together. How could they possibly be responsible for another human being? "I've been thinking about my options," she said carefully, and he knew what she meant even though she didn't say the words directly. "I mean, we have options. We don't have to..." "I know," he said quickly. "I know we have options." The room fell silent again. This was the big question, wasn't it? The one they'd been dancing around? What were they going to do? "I need you to know something," he said, turning to face her fully. "Whatever you decide, I'm here. This is your body, your choice, and I will support you no matter what. If you want to not go through with this, I understand. If you want to keep it, I'm here for that too. But this has to be your decision. I won't pressure you either way." She started crying harder then, and he pulled her into his arms. She buried her face in his shoulder, her whole body shaking with sobs. He held her tight, feeling his own eyes burning with tears he was trying to hold back. "I don't know what I want," she cried into his shoulder. "Part of me keeps thinking about what our baby would look like. Would they have your eyes, my smile? And then I get scared because I'm actually thinking about it like it's real. Like this is actually happening. And then I feel guilty because I shouldn't be excited about something that's ruining all our plans." He stroked her hair, not knowing what else to do. There were no right words for this moment. No perfect solution that would make everything okay. They stayed like that for a long time, holding each other in the quiet of his room. Eventually, her crying slowed down. She pulled back and wiped her face with her hands. "I think I need some time," she said. "We both need time to think about this clearly. Let's sleep on it? We don't have to decide anything tonight." He nodded, even though he knew sleep wasn't going to come easy for either of them. "Okay, we'll talk more tomorrow. Take all the time you need." She stood up slowly, looking exhausted. "I'm sorry for dropping this on you like this." "Don't apologize," he said. "You didn't do this alone." She gave him a weak smile and walked toward the door. But before she left, she turned back. "Hey," she said softly. "No matter what happens, we're in this together, right?" "Together," he promised. "Always." After she left, he sat alone in his room, the pregnancy test still sitting on his desk. He picked it up again and stared at those 2 pink lines. Somewhere in there, if she decided to keep it, was going to be his child. Half him, half her. A whole new person who didn't exist yet, but somehow already did. He thought about his father, the man who'd walked away. He thought about his mother, who'd sacrificed everything. He thought about the life he'd planned and the life that might be coming instead. And somewhere in all that fear and confusion, he felt something else. Something small and unexpected. It felt almost like hope. Neither of them slept that night. He knew because he heard her moving around in the living room at 3 in the morning. The apartment was small enough that every sound traveled through the walls. He heard the TV turn on, then off again. He heard the refrigerator door open and close. He heard her footsteps pacing back and forth. He wasn't doing much better. He'd been lying in bed staring at the ceiling for hours, his mind running in circles. Every time he closed his eyes, all he could see were numbers, bills, rent, insurance, baby stuff. Doctor visits. How much does a crib cost? What about a stroller? Diapers? He'd heard people joke about how expensive diapers were, but he'd never actually looked up the price. So he grabbed his phone and started searching. Big mistake. The more he searched, the more overwhelmed he became. Babies needed so much stuff. Clothes they'd grow out of in weeks. Special bottles. Car seats that cost more than his monthly grocery budget. And that wasn't even counting the hospital bills for the delivery. His stomach churned as he added up rough estimates in his head. The numbers made him feel sick, but then he'd stumble across something else. An article about fatherhood. A video of a dad meeting his newborn for the first time, and he'd watch it. This grown man crying as he held his tiny baby, and something would twist in his chest. Was that going to be him? Could that be him? He thought about his own father a lot that night. The man who'd left and never looked back. He barely remembered him, honestly. Just fragments. The smell of cigarette smoke. A deep voice. The sound of arguing. And then nothing. Just absence. His mom never talked about him much. When he was younger, he'd asked questions, but they always made her sad, so eventually he stopped asking. He grew up watching her struggle alone, working 2 jobs, always tired, always stressed. She did her best, and he loved her for it, but he saw what single parenthood had cost her. Her youth, her dreams, her happiness maybe. He didn't want that for his girlfriend, but he also didn't want to be like his father. The man who ran away when things got hard. When morning finally came, he dragged himself out of bed. His eyes felt like sandpaper. His head was pounding. He found her sitting at the kitchen table, still in yesterday's clothes, with her phone in her hands and a cup of cold coffee in front of her. She looked up when he walked in, and he could tell she hadn't slept either. Her eyes were puffy and red. Her hair was a mess, but she tried to smile at him anyway. "Morning," she said quietly. "Morning," he replied, pouring himself some coffee. "Did you sleep at all?" She shook her head. "Couldn't you?" "Same." They sat there in silence, both nursing their coffee, both lost in their own thoughts. The morning light coming through the window felt too bright, too cheerful for how heavy everything felt. "I've been thinking," she said finally. "A lot. About everything." He set down his cup, giving her his full attention. "I made lists," she continued, turning her phone to show him. Pros and cons, reasons to keep it, reasons not to. "I've been reading articles and forums and watching videos. I even called my sister at 2 a.m. "What did she say?" he asked. "She told me to stop overthinking and listen to my gut." She laughed, but it sounded tired. Easy for her to say. She's not the one whose gut is about to grow a human. He wanted to laugh too, but couldn't quite manage it. "The thing is," she said, looking down at her phone, "every logical reason says we shouldn't do this. We're not ready. We can't afford it. Our careers will suffer. Our relationship might not survive the stress. We live in a tiny apartment with paper-thin walls and a bathroom sink that barely works. We can't even keep plants alive. How are we supposed to keep a baby alive?" She was right. All of those things were true. "But then I think about not doing this," she continued, her voice getting quieter. "And something inside me just hurts. I keep putting my hand on my stomach, and I know it's too early to feel anything, but I swear I can feel something there. Not physically, but I don't know how to explain it." He knew exactly what she meant. He'd felt it too. That strange connection to something that barely existed yet. "I'm not saying I want to keep it," she said quickly. "I'm just saying that I can't stop thinking about it. About them. What they'd be like. And it scares me how much I'm already thinking about this baby as a real person." He reached across the table and took her hand. "I know, I've been thinking about it too." "Really?" She looked surprised. "Yeah. I spent half the night looking up baby stuff online and the other half thinking about my dad and wondering if I'd be any better than him." Her expression softened. "You're nothing like your father." "How do you know?" he asked. "I've never been a father before. What if it's genetic? What if I have that same instinct to run when things get hard? You're still here, aren't you?" She pointed out. "It's been 12 hours since I told you, and you're still here. Your dad left when things got tough. You're sitting here scared but present. That's already different." He wanted to believe her. He really did. I need to tell you something, he said. And I need you to really hear me, okay? She nodded. I'm terrified, he admitted. I'm absolutely terrified of this. Of being a father. Of not having enough money. Of failing. Of ruining a kid's life because I have no idea what I'm doing. But, he paused, trying to find the right words. But when I think about our future, I can't help but imagine it now. With a kid, I see us in a bigger apartment, maybe with a little bedroom painted yellow or green. I see myself teaching them to ride a bike or helping with homework. I see you reading them bedtime stories. And it scares me, but it also feels right somehow. Her eyes filled with tears again. You really see that? I do, he said. I'm not saying we should do this. I'm not trying to pressure you. But you asked what I was thinking, and that's what I'm thinking. That maybe we could do this. Maybe we'd be okay. She squeezed his hand tighter. I'm so scared of losing myself, she whispered. I've worked so hard to build my career to be independent. What if I become just a mom and nothing else? That won't happen, he said firmly. You're too strong for that. Too stubborn. He smiled a little. You think having a baby is going to erase everything that makes you who you are? You'll still be you, just you with a kid. But my body, she said, it's going to change. What if you don't find me attractive anymore? Are you serious? He almost laughed. You think I'm going to stop loving you because your body does this incredible thing and creates a whole human being? If anything, that makes you more amazing. She smiled through her tears. You're just saying that. I'm not, he insisted. I mean it. They sat there holding hands across the table and something shifted between them. The fear didn't disappear. The practical concerns didn't magically solve themselves, but something changed anyway. I think, she said slowly, carefully, I think I want to keep it. I know it's crazy. I know all the reasons why we shouldn't, but I can't shake this feeling that this is meant to happen. That maybe the timing is never going to be perfect, and maybe we just have to take the leap. His heart started pounding. Are you sure? No, she admitted. I'm not sure about anything, but I'm sure that I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering what if. I'm sure that when I imagine not doing this, I feel worse than when I imagine doing it scared. He stood up and walked around the table, pulling her up into a hug. She wrapped her arms around him tight, and he could feel her shaking. We're really doing this? He whispered into her hair. I think we are. She whispered back. Are you okay with that? Yeah, he said, and realized he meant it. Yeah, I'm okay with that. More than okay. They stood there in their tiny kitchen, holding each other. Two scared people who'd just made the biggest decision of their lives. Outside, the world kept spinning. People were going to work, living their normal lives, not knowing that in this little apartment everything had just changed. We should probably tell our families, she said after a while. He groaned. Do we have to? She pulled back and looked at him. Yes, we have to. And we're starting with your mom. Why my mom? He protested. Because you need to talk to her, she said. When's the last time you really talked to her about anything important? He couldn't remember. They talked on the phone sometimes, but it was always surface level. How's work? How's the weather? Never anything real? Fine, he sighed. We'll go see her this weekend. This weekend, she agreed. And then my parents. Your parents are going to hate me, he said. Probably, she admitted. But we'll deal with that together. Together. That word meant something different now. It wasn't just the two of them anymore. Soon it would be three. Saturday came faster than either of them wanted. He'd barely spoken to his mom in months, and now he was about to drop this bomb on her. The drive to her house felt like it took forever and no time at all. His girlfriend sat in the passenger seat, quiet, her hand resting protectively on her stomach even though there was nothing to see yet. You okay? She asked as he pulled up to the familiar house where he grew up. No, he admitted. You? Absolutely not, she said, but she smiled a little. But we're doing this anyway, right? Right. His mom's house looked exactly the same as it always did. Small, with peeling paint on the shutters and a garden that she somehow kept alive despite working all the time. He could see her through the kitchen window, moving around, probably making too much food like she always did when he visited. They walked up to the door and he knocked even though she'd told him 100 times to just walk in. Old habits. The door swung open, and there she was. His mom. Older than he remembered, with more gray in her hair and deeper lines around her eyes. But still the same woman who'd raised him alone. "There you are," she said, pulling him into a hug. Then she looked at his girlfriend and hugged her too. Come in, I made lunch. Way too much lunch, but you know me." They followed her inside, and the smell of home cooking hit him. Something with chicken. Probably that casserole she always made. The house was warm and cluttered with photos and memories. He saw himself in those photos, growing up on the walls. School pictures, baseball team, graduation. All the moments his mom had been there for, alone. They sat down at the small kitchen table, the same one he'd done his homework at as a kid. His mom served them food, chattering about her job and the neighbors and her garden. She always talked when she was nervous or excited. He realized she probably didn't get many visitors. He couldn't eat. His stomach was in knots. His girlfriend pushed food around her plate, not eating much either. His mom noticed. "Okay," she said, setting down her fork. "Something's going on, I can tell. You've got that same look you had when you were 7 and broke Mrs. Johnson's window with a baseball." He almost laughed. "Almost. Mom." He started, then stopped. "How do you say this? We need to tell you something." His mom's face changed. The smile faded. "What's wrong? Are you sick? Is someone hurt?" "No, nothing like that," his girlfriend said quickly. "Everyone's healthy." "Then what?" His mom looked between them and he saw the worry building in her eyes. He reached over and took his girlfriend's hand. For courage, for support, for both of them. "We're having a baby," he said. And the words felt huge in that small kitchen. Silence. His mom just stared at them. 1 second, 2 seconds, 5 seconds. The clock on the wall ticked loudly. He couldn't read her expression. Was she angry? Disappointed? He braced himself for whatever was coming, and then his mom's eyes filled with tears. "Oh," she said, her voice breaking. "Oh, sweetheart." She stood up and came around the table, pulling him up into the tightest hug she'd given him in years. She was crying, and he realized he was crying too. "I'm going to be a grandma?" she asked, pulling back to look at him. He nodded, not trusting his voice. "Oh my God," she said, and then she was hugging his girlfriend and they were all crying together in the middle of the kitchen. When they finally sat back down, his mom was wiping her eyes with a dish towel. "I'm sorry," she laughed. "I didn't mean to fall apart like that, I'm so happy." "You're not disappointed?" he asked. "We're not married. We weren't planning this. The timing is terrible." His mom reached across the table and took his hand. "Listen to me," she said firmly. "The timing is never perfect, never. I was 22 when I had you and your father and I were married and we thought we had it all figured out. Look how that turned out." She squeezed his hand tighter. "You're here. You're staying. That's what matters. You're not running away. You're scared, I can see it in your face, but you're here. Do you know how much that means?" Something broke inside him then. Some wall he'd been holding up for years. "I'm terrified I'm going to be like him," he admitted. "What if I can't do this? What if I fail?" "You won't," his mom said with absolute certainty. "You want to know how I know? Because you're already worried about it. Your father never worried. He just left. You're here, asking questions, facing this head on. That's the difference." They talked for another hour. His mom asked questions about the pregnancy, about their plans, about what they needed. She offered to help however she could. She even started talking about baby names and whether she should be called Grandma or Nana or something else. Watching her, seeing her excitement, something settled in his chest. Maybe they could do this. If his mom could raise him alone, surely 2 of them together could figure it out. But then came Sunday, and Sunday meant telling her parents. The drive to her parents' house was tense. They lived in a nicer neighborhood in a bigger house. Her dad was a manager at some company and her mom was a teacher. They had expectations, standards, plans for their daughter's life that probably didn't include an unplanned pregnancy. Her mom opened the door with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You're late," she said, which was her way of saying hello. Lunch with her parents was nothing like lunch with his mom. Everything was formal, proper. They ate in the dining room with actual cloth napkins. The conversation stayed surface level. Work, weather, politics briefly, until her dad said something that made everyone uncomfortable. He could feel his girlfriend getting more nervous with every passing minute. Her hand kept reaching for his under the table, squeezing tight. Finally, as her mom started clearing dishes, his girlfriend spoke up. "We have something to tell you both," she said. Her parents sat back down. Her dad folded his hands on the table. Her mom's expression was already worried. "We're pregnant," his girlfriend said, and her voice was steady even though he could feel her shaking beside him. The silence was different this time, cold, heavy. Her dad's face turned red. Her mom's hand flew to her mouth. "You're what?" her father said, and his voice was ice. "I'm pregnant," she repeated. "About 6 weeks. This is." Her dad started, then stopped. He looked at him with an expression that made him want to disappear. "This is your doing." "Dad, don't," his girlfriend said. "Don't what?" her father shot back. "Don't be upset that my daughter is throwing her life away. You're 25 years old. You just got that promotion at work. We paid for your education. And now what? You're going to throw it all away to play house?" "I'm not throwing anything away," she said, and he heard the anger building in her voice. "I'm having a baby. That doesn't mean my life is over." "Doesn't it?" her mother said quietly. "Sweetheart, you have no idea how hard this is going to be. Your career, your freedom, your body, everything changes. Are you even married?" "No," she admitted. "Of course not," her dad muttered. "Do you even have a plan? How are you going to afford this?" "We'll figure it out," she said. "You'll figure it out," her dad repeated mockingly. "That's not a plan, that's wishful thinking. Do you have any idea how much a child costs? Do you know how much your life is about to change?" He couldn't stay quiet anymore. "With all due respect, sir, we know this isn't ideal. We know the timing isn't perfect. But this is happening and we're going to do our best." Her dad turned on him. "Your best? And what exactly is your best? What do you even do for a living?" "Dad, stop it." His girlfriend stood up. "I didn't come here for your approval. I came here to tell you because you're my parents. But I'm doing this whether you support me or not." "Then you're on your own," her father said coldly. "Fine," she said, and he could hear the tears in her voice even though she was trying to sound strong. "Come on, let's go." They left. Her mom followed them to the door looking torn. "Give him time," she whispered. "He'll come around." But as they drove away, his girlfriend broke down crying. "That was horrible," she sobbed. "That was so much worse than I thought it would be." He pulled over and held her while she cried. "I'm so sorry," he said. "Why are you sorry? You didn't do anything wrong." "I got you into this mess," he said. She pulled back and looked at him through her tears. "We got into this together, and we'll get through it together. Even if my parents hate me." "They don't hate you," he said. "They're just scared and shocked they'll come around." He hoped he was right, but even if he wasn't, they had his mom's support, and they had each other. Maybe that would be enough.